Well, good evening. I want to thank you all for joining us tonight. My name is Nada St. Germain, and I am thrilled to be here to share this information with you. I have been using the Neolife products for over 35 years, and they have changed my life. They really helped me with energy, dealing with stress of my job. Many of you know I was a police officer for 10 years in the city. My mom's health was she was really struggling with a lot of inflammation in her body. And when a neighbor and a dear friend shared Neolife with me, I was really skeptical, but there was just something different about the company. We decided to try the products. So grateful I said yes 35 years ago because they've truly changed my life. I feel younger. I'm going to be 60 next year than I did when I was in my 20s and 30s. And my mom is going to be 80. And I literally had to pull her out of the garden to make sure she came in to have dinner. She's in that garden all day and she's going out again tonight. She's so physically active and loves being in her garden. And I know if it wasn't for the good nutrition, it just wouldn't be happening. But what I want to help you understand is who Neolife is and why we do need to supplement, because I really used to believe that I can get everything from my diet, everything from my food. But there's so much more research now saying that you can't with food processing and milling of our food and milling of our grains. It's very, very difficult to get all the nutrients from our diet alone and from our food alone. So what we're hoping to help you understand is how good whole food supplements can fill the gap, bridge the gap to slow aging, and just to make sure that you're healthy, especially when we're talking about the immune system. So Neolife is a worldwide nutrition company operating in over 50 countries and in business since 1958. Like when I looked at this company, I thought, wow, how come nobody knows about this company? I was in awe, trusted by millions of satisfied customers and business partners. And our goal is together to end the trend of poor health. So poor wellness, people that are struggling with low energy, and so many health challenges today. But I want you to meet the drivers behind these excellent products. And we were in Texas just last week and we hung out with three of these scientists. So grateful that we're able to meet these guys. And, one thing that's very unique about our scientific advisory board is they work with the company. They don't just endorse the product, they're involved in doing research and developing and manufacturing our products. And they have, as you can see, they're experts in so many different fields. So they don't know everything, right? So when they pull together and work together, they create incredible science. And Dr. Arthur First was the founding member and the head of our scientific advisory board for over 25 years. When I met Dr. Arthur First, his whole philosophy was food and nutrition, but he knew that there were so many deficiencies and he knew that supplementation was a solution to fill the gap, but the supplements needed to be made from whole food. And that is why he dedicated his whole life to making the Neolife products. We do have superior products that are based in nature and backed by science, created by doctors and scientists, based on whole food cytonutrition, non-GMO, full traceability, clinically proven on human clinical studies, and we do have a pharmaceutical license for manufacturing. Pretty awesome. Now, what I do want to share with you though is there's a lot of products out there recently that have been in trouble. And this was a public advisory back in 2024. So we have stuff going back 20 years ago, 10 years ago, but recently they found multivitamins distributed across Canada are being recalled because they may contain metal fibers. So again, these are popular brands, stores everybody goes into on a daily basis. So you just don't know. And that's why when I looked at Neolife, I was in awe because of our regulations and our testing, our purity, our values, absolute integrity. People are number one, products that work, an equal opportunity for all with a long range vision. This was something that was so important to me, for my family, especially when I looked at Neolife as a business opportunity. Now let's hear from two of our scientists. I met Dr. Fred Hooper when I first started building my Neolife business, and he lives in Texas, Nacogdoches. I was at his home. So when you see him in this interview in that beautiful century home in the background, I was there, and he is such a fun guy to be with. But let me tell you, he's pretty serious, especially when you hear him talk about sugar and the challenges. And he predicted this many years ago. So let's hear from both John Miller and Dr. Fred Hooper. Let me know if you can hear it okay.
everyone, and welcome to this edition of Inside the SAB. In this session, we'll be talking with Dr. Fred Hooper, a longtime member of the Scientific Advisory Board. Dr. Hooper got his PhD in nutrition way back in the early days at Texas A&M University, and then went from there to do his postdoctoral studies at the University of Texas, and then moved into the public arena, if you will, into the industry. And lucky enough for us, he joined us about 43 years ago now, in the late 1970s, 78 or 79. So
right.
Welcome aboard, Fred. This is going to be fun.
Thank you, John. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's great to have an opportunity to talk about a subject that I have been concerned about for all my professional career. And, I think, and I've told you before, that the worst thing that ever happened to the human race was the identification, isolation, purification, and distribution of refined white sugar.
Yeah, I remember years ago that you told me that exactly. We were having an SAB meeting, and you told me, because we talk about health challenges all the time. She said, John, I think in the end, it's going to all be about sugar.
It's primarily going to be about sugar, and I think it's proven that way. Now, if we look back a little bit, one of the things, of course, that concerns me and concerns everyone else is the increase in sugar consumption.
Yeah.
It was actually discovered about 2,000 years ago when they discovered sugar cane. That's when they started extracting it, purifying it, crystallizing it, and putting it in food. But if you look at the consumption data, back in the early 1700, the actual consumption of sugar, refined white sugar, was about 4 pounds, which was about 1% of the actual calories that the average person took in. By 1800, they had grown up to 18 pounds.
Mm-hmm. That's per person per year, yeah?
Per person per year,
yeah.
Per annum. By 1900, it had grown to 60 pounds.
Yeah. And
now we're looking at total consumption of caloric sweeteners up to 125, 26, and a recent article by the U.S. Department of Agriculture saying it's as much as 150 pounds per person per year.
Yeah.
And so that's over 20% of the total calories.
Right.
And of course, the problem with that, or one of the problems with that, is the fact that it's empty calories, and therefore the nutrients that we need from our food has to come from only 80% of our total caloric intake. And one of the things that really kind of disturbed me when we talk about things like this, particularly sugar, is we talk about the average. We talk about the per capita consumption, the average consumption. And I was reading a recent report that said, when you look at the average consumption, and I've always felt this way, that really doesn't mean anything, because the average consumption is way too high, several times the recommended amount. And we might have a tendency to think of ourselves, well, I'm average, or I'm below average. But if you, for example, you and I, if our average consumption of sugar is, say, 5 pounds a year,
yeah, I hear you.
There's somebody out here that's consuming 250 pounds a year.
Yeah.
Because in the world of science, they always talk about averages, and it doesn't address the individual. And so I think that's one of the fallacies of science, because they can't be more specific than that. They expect the consumer to look and see what the average is, and we all know that the average is too much.
Yeah.
So everybody thinks, well, I don't get average, so I'm healthy. But that's kind of a fallacy, because our system, and I'm going to talk about this for just a little while, our system is not designed absolutely not designed to handle large intake of refined sugar.
Yeah, I noticed that if you think about the sugar consumption data, the numbers you gave, one of the things I like about a lot of the epidemiology that you get is when they break it down into quartiles or quintiles, you can compare, that in the case of quintiles, the top consuming 20% against the bottom consuming 20%.
And they're consuming.
If that 150 or 120 pounds is the medium, that top quintile up there, the top 20% of consumers has got to be doing hundreds of pounds more than that a year just to make the numbers work.
Yeah, it makes the numbers work, but it's also very misleading, I think. But back to what I was going to say, our metabolic system is not designed to handle sugar the way we consume it. For example, if you consume refined sugar, it is very rapidly absorbed. The blood glucose level goes up extremely fast. We have a safety mechanism. The safety mechanism is insulin. Insulin is basically a hormone that tells the cells we've got to get that blood glucose level down because it's an oxidizing agent. It destroys blood vessels and everything else. So we've got to get it down. It's a safety mechanism to protect our body. And the way we do that is we release insulin. And the insulin tells the cells, basically, it's a gatekeeper, tells the cells to let the glucose in the cell. Now, when the glucose gets in the cell doesn't need it. The cell doesn't want it. The cell can't use it. It can't use that much glucose in the cell because it's primarily used as energy. What does it do with it? It converts it to fat, F-A-T, in order to protect the cell. So the insulin protects the system by removing the glucose, putting it in the cell. Then the cell has to protect itself from the glucose. Strong oxidizing agent, causes a lot of problems. So it converts it to fat. Yeah. And unless you're running a marathon, that sugar has no place to go, right? It has no place to go.
And it's so interesting when you think about it, just as a little aside here, it's like the body's protective mechanism, its dumping ground for excess glucose is fat, right? That's where it just sort of hides it. You don't send it out through exhale it through your breath or get it through your pores. It has no choice, right?
Right.
So it's sort of the end of the line.
And you have to think about something else too. The reason we have, as a safety mechanism, the reason we have fat storage is to protect us from famine. Now, if you think a long way back in history, we didn't sit down to 3 meals a day, or we didn't have access to all this food. We were hunters and gatherers. When we found something, we gorged ourselves, hoping that the body would convert it to fat so that when we hit a famine period, we could call on it. We don't ever get a famine period anymore. A person just, talking about quantities, like a soda drink that has 100 calories in it. Well, that's small, 6 ounces or something other like that. Have 100 calories. That's 12 grams. No, that's 5
grams of sugar.
Yeah. And so if you drink one that's got 200 calories in it, which is the regular size, that's going to be 50 grams.
Yeah.
50 grams of sugar. Refined white sugar that the body can do nothing with except try to get it to the cells as quick as they can and try to convert it to fat as quick as they can and store it and reluctantly burn that fat. It's extremely hard metabolically to burn fat. You have to create a famine condition in the body in order for the system to start digesting that fat. It will it will hold on to it just as long as it possibly can. So, we talk about, I don't know, you used a number the other day. You said the average consumption of fine white sugar was 77 grams a day. Well, if you drank a 200 calorie soft drink, you've already got 50.
Yeah.
Now, how many people do you know, or we know, that drink several of them every day?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I don't actually know very many, but I can tell you by the fact that those soda fountains appear just about everywhere and the soda pops appear just about everywhere, that there are a lot of people consuming a lot of that stuff.
That's a lot of people consuming a lot of that stuff. And most of the establishments now, the fast food establishment, give you a cup and you can go back and forth as many times as you want to.
Yeah. And they give you a cup that's like a quart.
Yeah. And, so they think they're doing you a favor.
Yeah.
And when actually they may be doing you a favor as far as the economic situation is concerned.
Maybe.
Because you can get you can drink all that you want. But it's like going to a buffet,
Yeah.
Go to a buffet and look at the people that's in the buffet. Why are they so overweight? Because they pay one price, they get all they want to eat, and they do.
They want to eat a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's go back just a moment here and talk about what went wrong a little bit. So sugars they're naturally occurring thing. In nature's plan, there's lots of sugars in the food supply. Yeah. Yes,
that's true, John. But they're totally different.
So I understand, but it's there, but it's there in a way that takes a lot of, first of all, traditionally or historically, it takes a lot of energy to get it. And then it takes a lot of energy to extract it from what you've eaten. So so it's not so much that naturally occurring sugar isn't something that nature planned for. It's this idea that we did all of that work now so that the body, you don't have to work to find the sugar in food, and then you don't have to work to get it out of what you ate. It's just sort of instantaneous, right?
Well, in reference to the natural sugars, we've talked about this a lot, the glycemic index, the glycemic age, because the natural sugars, it takes a lot of metabolic energy, a lot of metabolic time in order to extract those sugars.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're done for you, sugar is just like alcohol. There is no control mechanism on absorption. You eat refined white sugar or high fructose corn syrup, any of those sweeteners that have been purified, it goes straight to the brain, just like alcohol does. Goes straight to the bloodstream. But yes, natural sugars in their natural state, in their natural form, in the natural fruits and vegetables that we might consume, there is a control mechanism just through the digestive system that slows their intake.
Right.
We've talked about that in relation to sugar with a high fiber diet. It slows down the absorption of the glucose.
Yeah, well, sugar in the presence of fats. If fats present, glucose is slowed down too. So, and when it occurs naturally in the food supply, that was nature's plan all along. And in fact, a big part of our biochemistry is really dependent on simple carbohydrates, right? The brain loves to burn simple carbs.
Right.
So it's just when we overwhelm the system with all of this sort of cheap and dirty glucose, if you will, that we encounter a problem. Is that correct?
I agree with that 100%.
Okay.
I agree with that.
Historically, sugar hasn't, if you look at the data you talked about, 1700, 1800, 1900, it was going up, but it was never very much sugar as a starting point. But what I noticed is that, for example, during World War II, there were sugar rationing was going on, right? It became in short supply. I don't know why that is. Maybe you know. Can you tell us why it became?
Well, I don't know. I don't know exactly why that was the situation. other than the fact that I think most of the machinery and manufacture and personnel were devoted to producing the wire machinery and everything.
Yeah.
And I think it probably made a great contribution to the limitations. And plus, as you know, a lot of those food stamps, gasoline stamps, those stamps that you had to have during World War II in order to buy something, was to provide it for the military.
Yeah.
And it may not have been a national shortage as much as they wanted to make sure that they had enough for the military.
Right.
Now, I'm old enough to remember those stamps, and I remember living in a rural community where, aunts and uncles and cousins were all together, and they were always trading these stamps.
Yeah.
And, some of them get gasoline stamps and didn't even have a vehicle.
Yeah.
So that gave them some leverage. They could trade that for some sugar stamps or some other stamps. So it was
crazy.
I was young, but it was an interesting time to see all this negotiation going on, because that's the only way you can get some of these things.
So when you look at the what I call the real impact of health statistics, it seems like it all started happening sort of post World War II. So when we got out of World War II, there was a bunch of things sort of happened in the food supply. First of all, there was a tremendous industrialization of the food supply. Up to that point, we had more people living off the land than we did. And then there was an explosion of sugar-containing products and sweetener alternatives and things like that. And it's interesting that when you look at the diabetes data, for example, from 1950,
parallel,
right, that there's a direct parallel. As the increase in sugar consumption occurred, the increase in diabetes has occurred. I mean, it's stunningly similar graph.
Right. And weight.
And weight, right. Same thing with overweight and obesity, same sort of thing. So, you look at 1950, there were maybe less than 2 million diabetics in the United States. And you get to today where there are more than 30 million of them.
That's right.
And that's not a long period of time to have such a big explosion. And it's interesting that the two parallel that. So to me, that's one indication that sugar is a driver of chronic disease. Because obviously diabetes is a chronic disease, but it's also related to, overweight, obesity, diabetes, heart disease, metabolic syndrome, all of those things. Can you expand upon that a little bit? I know you've sort of looked at that very closely.
Just the fact that the body is actually fighting the glucose. The blood glucose at such a high level. And it's not unreasonable to visualize it having an effect on all those organs, from the kidneys to the heart, the circulatory system. It's just, I sometimes, talking about the instance of diabetes, I think sometimes maybe the government had something to do with that. I don't know whether it's Democrat or Republican, but, sugar has been subsidized.
Right. For a long time.
For a long time. When I was first joined the industry back in 72, actually, sugar was going into food products that I was associated with. And it was the cheapest commodity that they could buy to go in that food. The only other thing that might rival it as far as price is concerned was salt. Now you look at some food processed foods, they have a lot of salt in them.
Yeah.
But sugar was subsidized by the federal government. The price was supported, and therefore you could buy a train load of sugar for 5 cents a pound.
Mm-hmm.
And so it encouraged it. Plus the fact, sugar is a very good preservative agent.
Yes, right.
It is a very good preservative. You can make a dry cereal coated with sugar, and it will never go bad. Now you put vitamin and minerals in it, they may oxidize or change, but I'm talking about just, it's a preservative. Salt's a preservative, and so it encouraged that behavior, encouraged the use of sugar because of the cheap commodity, the preservative effect. People like it. People like it. You can't unlike sugar. And so people buy it.
Yep.
People consume it, and when I was a kid growing up, a soft drink was a real treat.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't average having a soft drink once a month. I promise you.
Yep.
Now, well, I can't even explain it. I can't even describe how terrible I think it is.
Yeah, well, they're everywhere. They become ubiquitous. If you think about it, everywhere you go, you're pretty much within arm's reach of some sort of sugar sweetened beverage or product of some sort. It's never far from us. We think of it as being convenient. I think there's a point where convenience becomes a little too over convenient and becomes deadly. So thinking about sugar, though, it's pretty easy to understand the impact, or pretty easy to draw parallels to the impact and the occurrence of disease. I mean, when you look at the data, it's not just overweight and obesity and diabetes and heart disease, it's kidney failure and non-alcohol fatty liver disease. And I read an article a while ago where a fellow said, as far as sugar goes, anywhere there are cells, there are problems.
Right.
Okay.
I agree with that. I agree with that because you can't separate it from all those things that occur as a result of excess sugar consumption. And it's I can't elaborate on it much more than that.
Right.
So contributes to all these conditions.
Yeah. Well, it's just the overload. So if we come back now, I know in the SAB, we talk about this sort of stuff all the time. Whenever we're putting products together, we're always doing that battle with the flavor and the mouthfeel and the texture and the taste, but keeping the sugar under control, right? Keeping it to a point where the sugar is in balance with other things that are there. When we did our glycemic response control development, if you remember back then, we spent a lot of time balancing the ratios between protein, fats, and sugars, carbohydrates, so that we gave the body enough the carbohydrate to sustain its needs, what we called good carbs, I think at the time, yet not so much that we would drive it into an insulin response, which was what glycemic response control was about. So it's not like you can just eliminate sugar from your diet completely. We need some carbohydrate. Okay.
No, you wouldn't want to eliminate sugar from your diet completely, or carbohydrates from your diet completely. But what we have to do, or what needs to be done, is get control of the individual, not the average. This average doesn't mean anything. The individual, we're going to have to start addressing, and we've tried to educate the people, we've talked to the people, and I think most of our distributors out there are very conscious. And I almost find it as a contradiction sometimes that we educate our distributors, they know what to do, and they may actually be members of a group that least needs what we have because they have a good practice. Yeah. You understand? It's almost a contradiction.
Right. The healthiest people have the healthiest practices, that's for sure.
Yeah, right. Healthiest people consume the healthiest product, and we provide healthy products for them. And, but in the meanwhile, we educate them, and they try to practice good nutrition.
Yeah. Well, I think there's always the issue of how you get that balance. I know for me personally, I like to get a lot of the sort of vitamins and minerals, or the sort of phytonutrients rather, that are associated with fruits and vegetables. And I also, I know that if you're going to eat a lot of fruit, you're going to get a lot of sugar. And even though it's a little bit slow to be metabolized, digested,
much slower,
very slow, it still ends up ultimately with a lot of calories there, unless I'm out running a marathon, which I don't do very often these days. Those calories are going to be, even though it takes all day to get them out, they're going to have to be digested. So there's this sort of philosophy that I have, is that, I consume fruits and vegetables, but try to consume more vegetables and fruit, but I try to consume those, knowing that if I take a product like carotenoids or flavonoids, that I can get a lot of those phytonutrients associated with fruits and vegetables without the sugar burden. Not to suggest that people shouldn't eat fruits and vegetables. We should eat them. Okay, we should eat a lot of them. But there's a way to get a very high density of these fruit and vegetable related phytonutrients without all of the sugars that might come along with them. Exactly. Which is one of the things we talk about in the SAB too. So, just to sort of to recap, okay, people are that are listening probably wondering, well, what do I do? How can this help me? How do I apply this? And I think that there's a couple of things that have come out here. One is first of all, your body does need some sugar, needs some carbohydrate, because in nature's plan, it was there. Two, the thing to do is avoid the refined and processed versions of that, especially when they come in big doses like you get in a soda pop. 17 teaspoons in a 12-ounce soda or something like that. I mean, that is a lot of sugar, basically sugar water. So
25 grams in 100
yeah,
drink.
It's a bunch. It's a bunch. So, I think that in the SIB, like I said, we think about these relationships all the time and make these calculations. So it's safe to say, though, Fred, and you can comment on this for me as we bring this to a close. It's safe to say that if you eat a balanced diet, though, and avoid what I call the industrialized food products, okay, because sugar is one of the first industrialized food ingredients, right? If you avoid the industrialized food products and focus on, the natural things that are present there, as I like to tell people, avoid the center of the supermarket and go to the extremes, because that's where you're going to find fruits and vegetables and things like that. Is not right in the front door, but off to the side. Then you can do okay. Is that a safe thing to say?
Is that a what?
Is that a safe thing to say? Safe way to
sure, that's a safe
stay
way
away from industrialized food products?
Pardon me. What you can do is also recommend that the people go out in the orchards and gather their own fruits and vegetables. If you think back historically, we could possibly overdose on fruits now because they're so readily available also.
Yeah.
But if you think back in history, and that's what I try to keep in mind, is we did not have this kind of food supply readily available. They had to hunt and gather, and our system is based on hunting, gathering mentality or need, not a mentality, but need. But I don't think anyone in general would eat enough fruits to overdose themselves on sugars at all. I don't think a person could eat that much.
Yeah, man.
Because they are slowly metabolized, they're slowly absorbed.
And your body has another protective mechanism. I know from, when I was a kid, we used to go out and work in the orchards here in Central California.
That's exactly right.
Cutting cuts or picking prunes, and if you ate a few too many of those as you were working along, your body let you know that it was time to find a porcine companion, right?
Yes, that's exactly right.
You need to get that out of there.
Yeah, you just brought up another subject that I don't think not we GNLD or we Neolife or whatever, but the health people, the activity level,
the
exercise level, Now you talk about running a marathon, consume too much or run a marathon and burn it off, et cetera, et cetera. But, the couch potato now is the way of life. And children don't have anything to do. They may exercise a little bit in school and all, but we don't exert ourselves. We don't have to exert ourselves. We don't have to exert energy to get energy.
No.
And that's the contradiction right now, because at one time we had to exert energy, to get food, get in. Now we don't do that.
Yeah. These days, you don't even need to get out of your car.
You don't even need to get out of your car. Go to one of those automatic drive up. They'll give you a super glove.
Yeah. So, I think just again, to summarize here, there's no doubt that the excess of sugar that appears in the diet, the numbers that we talked about, the averages of 120 or 150 pounds a year, pointing to the fact that some people at the upper end of that scale must be consuming 200 or 300 pounds, maybe more of this stuff a year, because there's a lot of people at the other end of the scale that are hardly ingesting any. So, but those are big drivers of disease. So no question that sugar is implicated in that. And I think that the key is for people is, like you say, exercise and things like that. And that's why the active lifestyle, the NEO lifestyle, as we call it, has always been foundational to our approach. If you remember our food pyramids and things like that, they were always on a foundation of activity, right? Exercise and physical activity.
That was the foundation.
That is the foundation. And then we set it up to maximize the presence of nutrients that are important, whether it is phytonutrients or amino acids or whatever it might be, and minimize the presence of simple sugars and saturated fats or whatever it might be. And that has been the philosophy and the goal of the Scientific Advisory Board all along, to develop these products and tools that allow people to pursue that NEO lifestyle and get the nutrients they need and the balance they need without the excesses that are so common in the modern industrial diet. So, Fred, I think that, you have been telling this story for probably longer than I can remember.
Yeah.
I can remember way back. And I can tell you that the fact that I remember a conversation we had 40 something years ago is testament to two things. Is testament to one, how convinced I was in your belief in that fact. And two, how your belief in that fact from decades ago has proven to be not only intuitive and insightful, but an alarm that more and more people should be paying attention to.
I agree. I just wish more people would do it. And, like I said before, we emphasize to our people, the Neolife people, what they should do, and many of them do it. I wish that they would spend more time, if they have it, more time recruiting people that need the information that we have.
Right.
Now, that's what our objective is.
Yes.
But sometimes we might be too focused on ourselves or a limited number of people. So I guess what I'm saying is they should take the flag, go out on the corner, and meet that person coming out of the supermarket with 12 packs of soft drink and, sign them up.
I'm going to end it on that because I have a hard time at the grocery store. Does anybody else have a hard time at the grocery store when you see some families and kids and their buggies are overflowing with all processed foods? And this refrigerator here, my goodness, I remember when my son had his first year of college, and I dropped him off and I helped him unload stuff, and he was renting a house with a bunch of guys, and I opened up the fridge and I'm like, right? It's your typical refrigerator at university and colleges, right? So, I mean, it's scary. And then a lot of people think, oh, but I buy these healthy smoothies and these smoothies are so good. And when you look at the sugar content of some of these smoothies, they're loaded with sugar, over 6 teaspoons in some of these smoothies, 7 teaspoons per bottle. There's one here that's 946 mil that has over 27 teaspoons of sugar, right? An Activia probiotic smoothie, 3 teaspoons of sugar. So you just don't know, like you think you're buying these healthy things, and even yogurt. I mean, I remember when my kids were little, I used to think, oh, I'm buying my kids healthy snacks, healthy yogurt. Well, a lot of these yogurts have, a lot of of sugar. 6 teaspoons in the Yoplait, 5 and 3/4 teaspoons in the Activia. Yop is a very popular drink now for kids, and because it's easy, it's convenient. 5 teaspoons of sugar. And again, it's just you got to be careful. You got to know how to read labels. You got to know what you're looking for. And then there's our cereals, right? Our cereals. When you're looking at just a small bowl of cereal, 8, 16, 5 teaspoons, 4 teaspoons, 7 teaspoons. Like I used to think, buying, that nice granola cereals, that Quaker Harvest Crunch, it was a healthy cereal. It was the highest sugar content of all the cereals you can buy. And here people think they're buying a healthy oat cereal, right, for their kids. So you really got to look at where you're getting your food, look at the sugar content, because they do suppress the immune system. I like to share that, how some moms say, oh, my kids are sick again. It's usually after Halloween, right? After Christmas, after like a special holiday, when they're consuming a lot of sugars because of the issue with the immune system. Now, I would love to have Shelly come on and join us, because when I met Shelly many years ago, she's going to share her journey with her son and the sugar challenge you had growing up, Shelly.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. All right. We have a doggy in the background here.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, I grew up with the typical, you had your cereal in the morning, dessert, and you would have dinner with the dessert. So, I mean, there was lots of sugar, even though some of those things were homemade, a lot was store-bought as well. And the other thing, yes, John and Dr. Hooper mentioned that the sugar goes straight to the brain, but it also really wreaks havoc with the gut as well. So I know for my son Mitchell, as well as for myself, we also had the issues with the overgrowth of the yeast, and the yeast feeds off of sugar. So that's a little bit more of another cycle. So yeah, we ran into a lot of, Mitchell had lots of digestive issues and lack of absorption, and a lot of it did come down to the amount of sugars, not only from sweets and candies and cereals, but also from pastas and different carbs that way as well. And as we were trying to figure out his gut issues, it was like, oh, that's me as well. So, and I certainly took in way too much sugar. And so when I was looking up, when they were talking about how many grams of sugar in a pop, and I wasn't much of a pop drinker growing up, but 20 grams of sugar in one of the cans of pop, um, for a male, you should only have 36 grams. So that's almost all of it. And for a female, it's the 25 grams. So one drink of pop is your limit for the day. And that's only the tip of the iceberg. So I know for myself, and once you get so much sugar into your system, you can really get the cravings and the addictions with it. And I remember reading once that sugar is 10 times more addictive than cocaine. So it's really a challenge to you have to look at what your habits are. You have to look at the foods that you're eating. You have to look at, are some of the things emotional eating, like what are your reasons for wanting and needing, and then take baby steps away from it, because it really is basis of inflammation is another thing that a lot of the sugars do. So yeah, it really can play havoc with our systems, and it's a good thing if we can, because this is Mitchell. Once we kind of shifted him and balanced his body and got him off of the sugars and the yeast and myself as well. I mean, he's a pretty strong guy because his body and his gut is working better. But yeah, I'm so pleased that gained a lot of information through Neolife and the information and the products to be able to make our bodies healthier.
Thank you, Shelley. Awesome. Thank you so much. And the products that we're going to be talking a little bit about are just our basic foundation, our core nutrition. Our Pro Vitality Pack is a fabulous solution to bridge the gap with things that we're not getting enough of in our diet, like the oils from grain that helps your cells work better, omega-3 fish oil that reduces inflammation in the body, and your fruits and veggies. So when you take this multivitamin pack, after a month, it's like consuming 80 pounds of fruits and vegetables in a box and 10 servings of fish and 30 pounds of whole grain without all the gluten. So this kind of gives you the core nutrition. But let's talk about the sugar regulation and the blood sugar control. Our protein shake is a meal replacement. It does help to regulate blood sugar. And I know this is one of the products that really helped you, Shelley, with getting the blood sugar regulated, because it's those ups and downs and those highs and lows that people really struggle with. And our Neolife shake is clinically proven to regulate blood sugar and get your blood sugar in the glycemic control zone. Tastes fantastic. And it just helps you get through those times, especially when you're starting to cut back and reduce the sugar that the processed sugar that you're wanting to reduce. And then we have an amazing drink called Elevate, which is an energy drink. And I have to say, this tastes like Kool-Aid, even though there's no sugar. So if you do like sugar and like a sweet drink, this is absolutely delicious. But it's more for mental focus and mental clarity, your brain, improved mood, hydration, and has all those key nutrients without giving you the heart palpitations and things like that. So when you add Elevate to the Pro Vitality and the Neolife Shake, we call that our core three. So it's a wonderful core nutrition to bridge the gaps. It's your health solutions for total wellness, weight management, and for peak performance. So just a great place for people to start if they're kind of looking like, oh, what's the best place for me to start? So this will really help to regulate blood sugar and get your blood sugar in that glycemic control zone. For those of you that are here looking at the business opportunity, when I looked at Neolife 35 years ago, I wasn't looking for a business, but I got really excited about sharing the products with family and friends. And later I realized that, actually very early, I realized that this is an incredible business opportunity because the products worked and they really helped my family and myself. And, why Neolife? Well, first of all, low cost startup, low risk, rewarding upside, residual income, ultimate flexibility with a full support system. I could not have done this if I didn't have the help of my friend, my neighbor, and my sponsor, because we kind of ventured into this together. And that's when I got really excited because I had no clue how to run a business. And where can you start a business, for example, in Canada, as little as $98 or $75 in the US. Now, if you're not interested in the business, you can just start as a customer and it's free to become a member. You get a discount of either 10% or 20%. We can explain all this to you if you're kind of curious about trying the products. We even have a referral program where you can get your products for free and even get all your shipping back for being a loyal customer. So it really is a great system. And if you're someone like me, who you're looking for something that you want to do to build for your future. So for example, when I was on the police force, I really thought that was going to be my career. But I realized after shift work and after realizing that it wasn't really for me, I didn't know what else I would do. But I started to build this little Neolife business and I had this goal and dream of staying home and starting a family. And this business did allow us to do that, to stay home, to leave our police careers, and to start a family. And I'm so blessed that I was able to stay home with my boys. And now both of them are involved in the business and they have a little side gig because they really truly value the products and they understand the importance of having a good tax savings at the end of the year. So if you're kind of curious about that, just reach out to the person that invited you and we'll help you and guide you in that direction. But if you just want to try the products, give the products a try. And if you love to travel, join the business. We have traveled all over the world with this business. I have traveled to places I never even imagined traveling to. My most favorite was Africa and Hawaii. But then, one of my dreams on my bucket list was to go to Israel. And I was able to do that a few years back because of the Neolife income. So if you do have some amazing goals and dreams of travel, that is something that this business will also allow you to do. And that's Shelly and I. When we like to do adventurous things when we do travel. And she said, Nana, do you want to go fat tire biking in the desert in Arizona? And I was like, sure. Anyways, that's these are some of the things we love to do. We're very adventurous, and because of the Neolife products and our health, we're able to do some of these crazy things because without good nutrition, you're just not able to do some of these things. So I'm so grateful and blessed that I said yes to these products 35 years ago, and I'm helping others do the same. So I want to thank you all for joining us tonight. And Shelly, I want to thank you for sharing your sugar journey with Mitchell. And I'll stop the recording and open up to any questions that you may have. So thank you again for joining us tonight.